Okay, well now it's time for the Jekyll and Hyde question. So again, I remind myself of the themes that I want to write about, and then I look at the question. Okay, well next I remember to turn to page 10 because that's where Jekyll and Hyde can be found. And once again, I get this really helpful context. I'm reading the right question. It's the extracts from chapter 2. Okay, so I know this happens early on. So that will be important in my answer because I will want to write about the context at some point, why that happens here and not somewhere else. And then I have this useful information that the extract's about Utterson and he's meeting Hyde. So then I can understand it when I read it. I don't read the extract yet, okay? I am going to go straight to the question. Stevenson's presentation of Utterson causes the reader to think that he's not a moral character. Okay, so right, I'm asking to think that Utterson is not moral. All right. Starting with this extract, well, remember that's just there to get you started. The mark scheme doesn't say you have to start with it. It's just there to get you quoting quickly. Explore how far, there's that phrase again, how far, which is the examiner saying, don't forget to evaluate to get the top marks. So if I've got to evaluate, I can't just agree. I'm going to have to find something moral and something immoral. It's very difficult to talk and write at the same time. Something immoral, so he knows he does wrong, or you might be aware of the word amoral, where he's not really interested in right and wrong. He doesn't really understand the difference. So those are your choices, and you can't agree with all of them. You've just got to, pick one that you most agree with and then say why not the others. That forces you to evaluate. Okay, what have I got to write about? Utterson in this extract and Utterson in the novel as a whole. Fine. Okay, well, before I start, I go back to what I was thinking at the beginning of the exam. So, which ones of these will be about Utterson? Well, definitely hypocrisy. I'm definitely going to write about that. I'm definitely going to write about homosexuality because I've got Utterson's unspoken desire for Dr. Jekyll, and that might include dual nature and religion. We'll find out when we look at the extract. Okay, in my Macbeth video I showed you how to start with the extract if you wanted, and that was the easiest way to gain marks. So we'll try that again. 6 o'clock struck on the bells of the church that was so conveniently near to Mr. Utterson's dwelling, and still he was digging at the problem. Oh, okay, well, we've got a church here, and that's really close to where Mr. Utterson has chosen to live. Well, brilliant. That links me to the theme of Christianity. So Utterson at the beginning is presented as a Christian person. Nice. I can start writing and answering my question already. However, Jekyll is also presented as a Christian person. And so if I can leap forward in the novel to when he suppresses Hyde, keeps Hyde hidden away for a whole year, and he starts doing good works and throwing parties and what have you, I can show that Christianity is just a veneer. In other words, it's on the surface, not underneath, just like a veneer is the surface, a polished surface of a table, but underneath it's just wood. And luckily, I've got this word here that I've spotted, conveniently. So now that conveniently could suggest that Utterson is a deeply Christian man and therefore wants to live really near the church. Or I can look at it the other way. He's not really very Christian at all. His Christianity is just a veneer, and consequently he needs to be really close to the church so he can pop in, do his time there and get out again quickly without having to listen to too much of the service or giving up too much of his day walking to the church. So I can argue that either way. Okay? Hitherto it had touched him on the intellectual side alone, but now his imagination also was engaged, or rather enslaved, as he lay and tossed in the gross darkness of the night and the curtained room. Mr. Enfield's tale went by before his mind in a scroll of lighted pictures. Well, I noticed this word enslaved here, and I'm going to link that straight to the idea of sexual desire, which again has been repressed because it's homosexual. And so actually what he's dreaming about here is Mr. Enfield's tale, which is Hyde. So here he is mulling over the problem of the will. And the problem of the will is that he can't understand why Jekyll wants to give Hyde all of his inheritance. And the only reason he can come up with for Hyde having this hold over Jekyll is he believes that they are in a homosexual relationship. Okay, so I haven't yet got to Utterson's homosexual desires for Jekyll, but I'm going to get that later on. Now we've got this paragraph about the city. He would be aware of the great field of lamps of a nocturnal city, then of the figure of a man walking swiftly, then of a child running from the doctor's. Then these met, and that human juggernaut trod the child down and passed on regardless of her screams. Or else he would see a room in a rich house where his friend lay asleep. Oh, hello. So here he's gone straight from that tale to picturing Jekyll in his bed. And I can focus on the idea of figure of a man and say that it's the figure of this man, his physical form, that is attracting Utterson in his dream, and therefore this is again his repressed sexual desire. Now, because this is all happening in a dream, what I'm going to argue is that Utterson is unaware of his own sexual desires. He believes homosexuality to be wrong, perhaps, which is why he thinks Hyde would be blackmailing Jekyll. But he's unaware of his own jealousy, that he is jealous of Hyde's relationship with Jekyll, and the reason he is jealous is that he himself wants to have this relationship with Jekyll, but does not even admit this to himself in his conscious mind. This is only an unconscious thought that comes through his dreaming. And when we then look at smiling at his dreams, although this is Jekyll dreaming, we can imagine that this is what Utterson wants to feel, because obviously Jekyll is dreaming in Utterson's mind about Hyde, because Utterson believes that Jekyll is in a relationship with Hyde, and that isn't contestable. That's absolutely true in the novel. It's impossible to disagree with that. Now, you can disagree with my next leap, which is that this therefore indicates Utterson's own passion for Jekyll. And then the door of that room would be opened, the curtains of the bed plucked apart. So we've got the violence of this image here, which sounds very sexual. And the sleeper recalled, and lo, this exclamation mark of wonder, there would stand by his side a figure to whom power was given. And even at that dead hour, he must rise and do its bidding. And so I'd focus on that as a euphemism for the homosexual sexual act. Okay, now I've got to relate that to other things happening elsewhere in the novel. So I can relate that to the will. So that is Hyde's bidding. I can also link that to the time when Utterson is talking about the past and the sins that we commit when we are young, that he wants to forgive Jekyll for, which suggests that in his youth he expected Jekyll to have got up to all sorts of sinful behaviour. So now you can see how easy it is to link from the passage to the novel as a whole. So the clock is ticking away behind me towards the exams. It's coming up on Tuesday. I'm making this on Sunday. Hopefully I'll have time to get the video out to you. Good luck with your revision. Pay attention to the techniques that I've given you, and then the exam will seem easy. You will not need to panic. Good luck, and if you'd like more, don't forget to subscribe.